Hello, all. My name is Krish Naik, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I know many of you were expecting some live sessions on langgraph, but I thought I will start creating recording videos because these recording videos will be referenced in the form of a playlist. So it will be good that you go ahead and probably refer this in my YouTube channel whenever you can. Already in my previous video, we had made an announcement that we are going to start this langgraph series, and I had actually written down the agenda over here. The first topic that we are going to cover up is related to Pydantic data validation, and that is what we are going to discuss in this specific video. Now, why Pydantic is important? Since we are learning about langgraph, but why do we require Pydantic? Without Pydantic, can't we start langgraph? That will be the question that many people will have. So that is the reason I'll tell you guys, before you start langgraph, always make sure that you learn Pydantic modules completely for the data validation part. And it is really important. So in this specific video, I'll be talking about all Pydantic. I'll be showing you practical applications and why it will be used in langgraph also, I will tell you. Okay. Now, it's not like Pydantic has just become famous right now and many people are using it, but year by year, if you see, right, if you have already worked in fast API, right? So if you have already worked in fast API here, that Pydantic module is used a lot, right? Pydantic module is used a lot. Now, why it is specifically used, we will try to understand. Understand, guys. Let's say I have an application, okay? And in this specific application, let's say I'm making an API request. Okay. I'm making an API request. And let's say that in through this particular API request, I get some kind of JSON data. Okay. I'm just giving you an example. Let's say that I'm getting the some kind of JSON data from the API request. Now, within the application for this particular JSON data, let's say there will be some kind of structure. Let's say here I'm getting values like name is equal to Krish. Okay. Name is equal to Krish. Let's say age is equal to some value 35, and some more information is there. Okay. Here, there are some information that is coming from the API, and this particular information is of a specific data type. Okay. Whenever I talk about the application which is calling this particular API is expecting some kind of information, right, in some specific format, let's say the JSON format. Now, inside this JSON format, the values that I'm getting inside this particular fields or variables, right, it is of some data types, right? Let's say name is coming with respect to string, age is coming with respect to name, and all, right? And it is necessary that we keep this kind of type hint. Okay, we keep this kind of type hint with respect to the information that we are getting into the application, right? And to make sure that we have that schema fixed, right, we have that schema fixed, we will definitely create some kind of class, right? So with respect to the class, I will be having all these particular variables, and I will define, hey, this should be string, this should be integer, this should be, let's say, float, right? But when I'm getting from the information from the API, how do we validate that it is matching this specific information? You know, how do we validate that? So that entire data validation now can be easily done with data validation, can be easily done with Pydantic module. Now, what is the advantage of using this? We will discuss about that, right? Because this Pydantic module, the backend is completely written in Rust. Since it is written in Rust, this entire process of data validation becomes much more quicker, right, if we are directly implementing or creating our model or classes inheriting this Pydantic module. Okay. So internally, this kind of data validation will automatically happen whenever any data is probably coming from API. Now, why do you think in langgraph we really want to use Pydantic? Because see, understand, right now we are getting this data from API, right? But when we talk about langgraph, now, LangGraph is a kind of frameworks where we create complex workflows, where we automate complex workflows. Let's say one of the workflow that I really want to create, okay? And this workflow is for a task that I upload a YouTube video, and this should get converted into a blog. And here I don't want to include any human beings. So what is my task is that as soon as I upload a YouTube video, something should get triggered. Some workflow should get triggered wherein I probably read the content from this YouTube. Then in my next workflow, my LLM call is basically done with this information, and this LLM creates the entire blog. So this entire process can be automated, right? I don't have to include any human beings. I don't have to probably go ahead and say that, hey, one person, I don't have to probably go ahead and say, hey, you get the transcript, design the blog. Instead, LLM can do that part, right? So I don't have to probably include anyone, because this kind of task, LLM is now far more advanced. It is trained well with the specific data, right? So that is the reason what we can do is that we can automate this entire workflow with the help of LangGraph. But here also you can see that with respect to every node, this is basically called as nodes. I will talk more about LangGraph as we go ahead. Whenever every node is basically getting executed, here, what is being expected? Let's say here the output is expected that I need to have a title. This title should be a string type. Then I need to have a description. This should also be a string type, right? This two information is just like the information that we are going to get from the model, right? And this value needs to be populated from the LLM. My title should not have an integer. So that kind of data validation will automatically happen if we are inheriting, or if we are creating this particular model, which we can also create it over here by inheriting the Pydantic module, right? So that is the reason it is important. And whenever we talk about advanced LLM models, this is just two fields. When we are creating more complex workflows, there will be different fields, and those fields will be populated. The LLM should probably give me a structured output. The LLM should be giving me a structured output, and this structured output validation will be done by the Pydantic module. This is really important. Pydantic module, because initially we will define a class, and this will be inheriting the Pydantic module with all the fields. The LLM should output the structured output itself, right? So with all these fields, let's say my LLM need to give me an output of title, description, some information, that all needs to be given in the form of a structured output. And if LLM wants to probably give us in a structured output, we need to create a specific class with all the variables inherited with this Pydantic module. I know I've said a lot many information, but don't worry. In this video, we'll just focus on understanding about Pydantic module, and we'll try to see that how we can go ahead and create the classes and do everything as such. Okay, but as we go ahead in the upcoming videos, right, with respect to LangGraph, you will understand how we'll be using this Pydantic module. Okay, so now let me go ahead and quickly open my VS Code. Now in this specific VS Code, what we are basically going to do, I have already created an environment. I'll create my first module that is called as Pydantic. All these materials will be given in the description, in the register, in the link that is given in the description of this particular video. So in Krishna Academy, we have created this entirely as a free course. You can go ahead and download it from there. So now, just to start with, I will just go ahead and write intro.ipynb. Okay. So I'll start with ipynb, but before I go ahead, I will just go ahead and install my ipy kernel. Okay. Because we will be requiring this. So once I go ahead and install the ipy kernel, here you will be able to see that my installation will probably happen. And then we should be able to select a kernel for this particular Jupyter notebook. Now, step by step, we will start with how this Pydantic module can be used for data validation. We'll create a simple model. When I say models, I'm basically talking about class, how we can inherit from a base model, how that entire data validation will happen, and many more things. Okay. So let this happen quickly. So once this is done, we will go ahead and select the kernel. I will go ahead and select the Python environment. Let me go ahead and create a markdown. And for this particular markdown, I will just go ahead and write some information over here. So here, this is the first thing that we are going to discuss. That is Pydantic basics, creating and using models. Okay. And I will just delete this. So let's see why this ipy kernel is taking so much time. Yeah, it is done. In the future classes, I will also show you one more way, like how you can use UV for handling the entire packages. Okay. So Python basics, creating and using models. Pydantic models are the foundation of data validation in Python. They use Python type annotation to define the structure and validate data at runtime. Okay, here is a detailed exploration of basic model creation with several examples. So first of all, what I will do, in order to use in Pydantic, first of all, we need to import from Pydantic, import base model. So right now, you can see over here, Pydantic is not coming up, right? So what we will do, we will just go ahead and create one requirement.txt. Okay, because I will be requiring some libraries. So requirements.txt. Okay, now here I will just go ahead and write Pydantic. Okay, and we will just go ahead and open my terminal and again go ahead and write pip install. It is better that I hide my face so that you should be able to see my screen. Okay, pip install -r requirement.txt. Okay, so once we do this, the entire Pydantic module will get installed. Okay, perfect. Now what I will do, I will just go over here. Now here you can see I will just go ahead and write from Pydantic import base model. Okay, base model. So as soon as we import this base model, now you'll be able to see that if I just hover through this, what is this base model? Okay, the name of the class defined on the model, there's some information, but it's okay. I will just go ahead and show you. But this, you can just say that it is a base class for creating Pydantic models, which performs the data validation. So guys, now we have imported from Pydantic import base model. Okay, what we are going to do is that first of all, we are just going to start with a simple model, which is inheriting this base model with some of the required fields, and we'll see that how did the data validation happen. Okay, now here I'm just going to go ahead and write class person, and here we are going to inherit the base model. Sorry, this is my base model. And then we will just go ahead and create some variables like name is equal to str, age is equal to int, age colon int. Okay, and then here you have city colon str. Okay, so here what I am specifically saying is that, hey, the name value, since we are inheriting this base model, okay, since this person model is, or person class is inheriting from this base model, that basically means here we are defining some variables. The name should be of string type, age should be of integer type, city should be of str type. Okay, now let's say that we will go ahead and create an instance. So let's say I will just go ahead and write person is equal to person. And here let's say that I go ahead and define name is equal to Krish. Okay, Krish. And then I have age is equal to age is equal to 35. Okay. And then I have something like city is equal to Bangalore. Okay. Since it is of string type. Okay. Now, if I just go ahead and print person, okay, and execute this, here you can see all the specific information I'm able to see inside this person. Okay. And if you go ahead and see the type of person, okay, type of person, here you can see that it is of main.person object, right? Now, this is fine, right? You'll be able to see that, hey, Krish, if we also create a data class, I think it will work in the similar way. What additional thing you're basically doing, right? Let's say over here, if you just say, hey, from data class, import data class, right? You can also use this, right? So you use a decorator data class and you can use the same thing, and you don't have to inherit the base model, right? And here you should be able to print this too, right? Right, so here you are getting, okay, this is a person object, and here you are getting name, Krish, age. So what is it so different? Why we are inheriting base model? Now here is the magic that you will be seeing. If I just go ahead and create my another object, person1, and let's say over here name is equal to Krish, age is equal to 35, instead of giving a string value, city is str, if instead of giving a string value, if I give some value like 12 integer, now what will happen? Here you'll be able to see that, sorry, this should be person one. Here you'll be able to see that person, okay, sorry, I have to execute this. Okay, so let's execute this base model. Now, if I go ahead and execute it, here you'll be able to see that I'm getting this specific error, one validation error for person, right? So once we inherit base model, this class validation will take place because of the Pydantic, right? So let's make this as person one, and let's make this person. Now if I go ahead and execute the same thing for the previous one with respect to data class, and if I just go ahead and use this, okay, and if I make this Bangalore to 35, will I get an error? The answer is no. I'm not getting an error. That basically means the classes that we are creating or the model that we are creating where we are using this data class, here the data validation is not at all happening, right? But what if happens that when I do data validation over here, what is basically going to happen? The data validation says that, hey, Krish, we are not going to make sure that we don't give anything other than specified in this specific class. Right? So here city is str, but you're giving as an integer. So that is the reason you're getting this data validation. Now you understand, if I just go ahead and fix these parameters and I tell my LLM, hey, your structured output should come within this particular variable. This can also be a dictionary. And you should display the output in this way, where my name should be string, my age should be integer, city should be str. Just imagine how easy it becomes for you to get the output, right? So this is basically called as data validation. And this is how we basically do a data validation with the help of Pydantic. Okay. Let's see one more example, and this time we will be using some more additional fields. Okay, so the best part of inheriting Pydantic is that the data validation will automatically happen, right? And this data validation is very, very amazing. Why? Because the backend is Rust. You can see that how fast the data validation will happen, right? So here you're getting in this validation error. You can also handle this particular error, which I will show you. Okay. Now let me just go ahead and show you one more method, which is called as model with optional field. So here I have defined some fields like name, age, and city, right? So there is also a way which is called as optional fields. Okay, so optional fields, how do we import it? So I will go ahead and write from typing, import optional. Okay, now inside this, what I will do, I will go ahead and create a class. Okay, let's say these are my class. It is inheriting the base model. The first parameter is ID with integer, name with str, department with str, salary is optional float. Now, what does this optional float mean? Optional with default value. So here we are saying that, hey, this is an optional float value with none as the default value. Okay, default value. Okay, now what will this optional do? Okay, indicates the field can be none. Okay, so this field can be null. Okay, none. So here it is a float value, here it is a boolean value. Okay, and by default the value will be true. Okay, now what I will do, I will just go ahead and print this. Now see this magic. Okay, I will just go ahead and print, hey, employees there, ID is equal to 1, John is equal to, name is equal to John, department is equal to IT. I have not given this two values over here, right? So if I just go ahead and print this employee one, salary will be none, is active is equal to true. See, by default, if I want to specify a specific field, I can keep it as optional with a default value over here as none. Okay, so I hope you are able to understand this too, right? Very much simple. Okay, let's say that I go ahead and write one more thing over here. Let's say employee to ID, name, JN, department, salary is 6,000, is active is equal to false. You should be able to see this particular value. By default, this will become a floating point. Okay, what happens if I remove this and I make it as integer? Automatic typecasting will also happen. Is there a possibility of typecasting into float? The answer is yes. Yes, it is possible. So here we are able to write it down. Okay, so just to define this, I will also put a markdown so that you should be able to have some kind of references so that you can refer it over here. Okay. Okay, so let's see this. Okay, one by one we will read this. Okay, so here you can see that optional type indicates the field can be none, default value is equal to none is equal to true makes the field optional. Okay, required fields must still be provided. Pydantic validates type even for optional field when the values are provided. Okay, now similarly, let's say that one of the field can also be a list. So for that list, how do we do it? Okay, so we can also create model with list values or list fields. So here what I'm going to do, I'll just go ahead and import base model list. So I'm created a classroom. Room number will be string. Since we are inheriting this Pydantic base model, so here the data validation will be applied on all these variables. Students can be of type list of string. Okay, so here we can have a list of string values. Okay, so list of string values and capacity will be integer. Okay, so if I really want to go ahead and inherit this, it is a very simple way. I'll just go ahead and execute this. I will go ahead and write create classroom, room number A1, students Alice, Bob, Charlie, capacity is 30. So here you can see I'm giving a list of string variables, right? And if I just go ahead and print the classroom, I should be able to get it. Okay. Now instead of this list, if I just go ahead and provide like this, like a dictionary or like a tuple, let's see whether tuple will work, whether typecasting will happen, that all things you can actually see. Yes. So here you can see that typecasting is also happening for this, right? But if you give something else like dictionary, it is going to give you a data validation error, right? So I hope you are able to understand this. Okay, let's try something good, right? What happens if I just give, instead of list of string, I give an integer? Okay, so we will try to handle this with the try catch block. So I will write try colon. Okay, let's say invalid val is equal to, I'll just go ahead and write classroom. Okay, and then this will basically be my room number. Room number is A1, let's say, and then students, I'll write crash, comma, 123. It should be string, but I'm writing 123. And let's say capacity here, I'll specify it at 30. Okay. Now, since I know I'm going to get an error, what kind of error I'm going to get? See, if you see over here, if we don't provide the right values with respect to the data, then I'm going to get a validation error. Okay. Otherwise, we can also get a value error. So I will just go ahead and write except value error as E, because we have not provided the right value, and then I'm just going to get print E. Okay. So here you can see one validation error for classroom. Student one input should be a valid string type. String type input value is equal to 1, 2, 3. Input type is int. It is saying that, hey, you are providing an int. And how this is basically happening? Because of the Pydantic. Yeah, Pydantic. So here you can just see this particular examples, right? Let me show you one more very good way of. So here we can also implement Pydantic models, model with nested values. Okay, let's say if I have some kind of models with a much more complex structure. Okay, then we can also do that. And let me show you one specific example for this also, where you should be able to get an example very easily. Okay, so here you should be able to see this. First of all, I created an address field. This is inheriting base model. Then customer, I've created another class. Here this address is referring to this particular class. That basically means this address will have these three values: street, city, and zip code. Right? So that is the reason we say this as nested model. We are creating models with nested model. And this customer, you can see over here, customer one, I'm writing name, then address, I'm specifying in the form of key value pairs where street is equal to 1 to 3. All these values are there. Okay. And then I can just go ahead and execute this. So here you can see good output. One more very amazing thing is that what happens if I just go ahead and keep this zip as int, okay? And here you can see zip code I'm giving as string. Will this get typecasted? Will this be handled by Pydantic? The answer is yes. So you should be able to see that it is automatically converting the string into an integer value, okay? So I hope you are able to understand all the specific stuff, and I hope you are able to understand why do we use Pydantic, what are the different types of data validation, and it is really, really important to probably go ahead and do this kind of data validation itself. Okay. Now, the next stuff that we are basically going to discuss about is Pydantic field customization and constraints. Okay, so this is what we are basically going to discuss about. This is also really, really important. There is a topic with respect to Pydantic fields, which is specifically used, for some kind of constraints. The field function in the Pydantic enhances model fields beyond basic type hints. So there is a thing, something called as type hints, by allowing you to specify validation rules. So you can also specify some kind of validation rules. Now, by default, whatever data types you are specifying, based on that validation is basically getting applied. But on top of that, if you want to add more validation, how do we do it? Okay. So again, I will just go ahead and import from Pydantic, import base model, import base model, and then we'll just go ahead and import field. Okay, now here let me go ahead and create some item. Okay, so a class item I will go ahead and inherit with my base model. Okay, and then here I have my name. Okay, string, and let me just go ahead and create this as a field. Okay, now this field will be basically very important. Okay, because here we will just go ahead and define some constraints. Let's say the minimum length. I'll say that, hey, this field should have a minimum length of 2. That basically means at least string value also you're mentioning you should have a minimum length of 2. Then you have this max length. Max length you can basically have for 50. Okay, let's say that you have max length you can have 50. So these are some kind of constraints on top of that validation that basically happens, right? By default the validation of str gets applied, but on top of it I'm giving min length, max length and all for a string, right? Similarly, if I just go ahead and apply, let's say this is my second value, price, and I am saying that hey, this is of float type, I'm going to use this also as field. Whenever we have field and whenever we have float and integer, we can go ahead and apply different validation like greater than. Okay, so it should be greater than 0 and it should be less than, let's say, 1000. Okay, let's say the price should be only between 0 to 100, right? It should be greater than and less than 1000, right? And similarly, I can still go ahead and apply one more like quantity, right? So quantity will be of integer type, and here we are just going to go ahead and use this as field. And here also I can go ahead and write it should be greater than 0. It cannot be less than 0, right? So here, just to give you an example, uh, this is just like, hey, this is a required field. Here the value should be greater than 0 and less than equal to 1000, right? You can go ahead and define like this, right? It should be greater than 0 and less than or equal to 1000, and this should be greater than 0, right? Now what happens if I just go ahead and apply this validation? Now see this, I will just go ahead and print the item. Now if I go ahead and execute it, this looks perfectly fine. Now what happens if I just make the price to -1? It will give us a validation error saying that hey, the input should be greater than 0, it cannot be less than 1, right? So this is what it is, and here you can see how fast this is, and this is all possible because of this Pydantic model. Okay, and this is just like a basic field with constraints, right? We are just trying to put some kind of constraints. Okay, see, here we have not even specified the default value, but we can also specify some default value. We can specify some description and all this stuffs. Okay, we can do that, and based on that, you can actually see this, right? Now let's go ahead and do one more example. Okay, and this time we are going to create some fields with default value. Okay, so here let's go ahead and just execute this code. Now I think you should be able to understand this. One more example. So here I've created a user, the base model, username field. This is just like the optional parameter. I'm just skipping this. Okay, description. Also, you can specify using unique username for the user. Why this will be useful, I will talk about it, because here, if I want to see the schema, I should be able to see it. Okay. Now see, in this age, you can also specify default value inside the field. Okay, then you have description, user age default to 18, email str default factory lambda. Okay, we have just used some lambda user at the rate gmail.com default. Some information is over here with respect to the field. Okay, and then here we are using Alice. So let's print Alice, right? By default, the value will be user at the rate gmail.com. If I specify any particular value, it should be that specific value will automatically get replaced, right? So here also you can basically see this. Now you may be thinking, Krish, why all this specific information is required? The reason is very simple. If I just go ahead and print my user dot schema, I should be able to see all the specific information. Let's say, so the schema should be a function. So here you can see properties, user description, all this specific information. Now, it also says that, hey, it is basically the schema method is deprecated. Use model.json schema. Okay, great. I will just go ahead and write model underscore JSON schema. Okay. Now see, I'm getting this entire schema. So once we use this user.model JSON schema, here you can see that I'm able to get all the information like username, description, all the specific information, so that at least if you give the schema, the developer should be able to understand like what kind of API request we should be giving back to the users, right? So this is really, really amazing, right? Now, all the specific stuffs, and there are multiple things that we will try to cover. Still, there are a lot of topics I want to cover itself. Will not make this video long. This is just the part 1. Okay, the part 2 we'll try to upload it as soon as possible. But let's go ahead and try this out. And slowly after this, I will be integrating with langgraph, and then you'll be seeing some amazing things that will be happening out there. So yes, this was it from my side. I hope you like this particular video. I will see you all in the next video. Have a great day ahead. Thank you, one doll. Please make sure that you go ahead and practice it. Hit like. Uh, yes, make it to 1,000 likes at least, because all this specific content are completely for free. So yeah, this was it from my side. I hope you like this particular video. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye bye. Take care.